All right, so number 8 says Joel and Chris went to a bakery to buy desserts for a party. Joel bought 3 pies and 2 cakes for $53, and Chris bought 1 cake and 5 pies for $58. So I have 2 different things I'm talking about. So I'm going to let my pies be X and the cakes be Y. And so on the second part with Chris, the cake, like I said, is Y and the pie is X. Notice they switched the words around, so you got to make sure that you get that right. So I'm going to start with saying I have 3 pies, so that's 3x. And then I have 2 cakes, which is 2y, equals $53. And then I have 5 pies and 1 cake for $58, talking about Chris. So I have a system of equations because I have 2 equations and each one has a variable. So the easiest way to solve this one is by substitution. Because I have, anytime you have a y that's a 1y or a 1x, you should use substitution method. It's the easiest. So I'm going to solve for this y. And I get y equals negative 5x plus 58. And then I'm going to take that y equals and replace it for y in the other equation. So I'm going to get 3x plus 2 times the quantity negative 5x plus 58 equals 53. Since I have parentheses, I have to use distributive property. So you do 2 times negative 5x is negative 10x, and 2 times 58 is 116. Now I've got to combine like terms, so I have 3x plus 10x. They're both x or plus a negative 10x. So I'm going to add these together, and I get negative 7x plus 116 equals 53. And then you just solve it like a 2-step equation. Draw the wall, subtract 116 from both sides, which gives you negative 7x equals negative 63. And then you're going to divide by whatever the number in front of the variable is. So that means divide both sides by negative 7, and you get x equals 9. Now remember, x represents pies. So it says, what was the price for a single pie? $9. Okay, we know that now because we solved for x. So it says, later that day, Jack went to the bakery and bought 4 pies and 2 cakes. If the prices at the bakery stayed the same, how much did Jack pay? Well, we know how much the pies are. They were 9, right? So I can look here and I can say, okay, Chris bought 5 pies and they were $9 a piece, so that's $45, right? So if this is $45 and he spent a total of $58, I can subtract 58 minus 45, and that's going to give me the price of my cake, which is y equals 13. So a cake costs $13. So if I multiply 4 times 9 and 2 times 13, I'm going to get $62. So the total for, at the end of the day for Jack was 62. Let's look at number 9. So it says, what is the value of x in this equation? Last year when you guys took the state test, you had a lot of whole numbers when you solved equations, right? Well, this year you're going to have a lot of decimals and fractions. You're probably not going to have any equations that have whole numbers. So you've got to be confident working with decimals and working with fractions. Now I will say this. If you feel better about working with decimals, because you can put them in the calculator, change all your fractions to decimals and see if that helps you out. A lot of students that I've had in the past have done that. So we're going to start with the steps for solving equations, which is don't call me after midnight. If you'll look at the anchor chart, don't stands for distribute. Call is combine like terms. Me is moving variables. After is add and subtract. And midnight is multiply and divide. If you can remember that, you can remember the steps in order of what you need to do to solve the equation. So I'm going to start with distribute. Distribute means, do I have parentheses and can I multiply? So since there is parentheses right here, I got to multiply first. So I'm going to multiply negative 3 times x, or negative 0.3, and I get negative 0.3x. Negative 0.3 times negative 10 is a positive 3. So then I bring everything else down, and I draw boxes around my x's and circles around my numbers so that I know when to combine and what to combine. So I have a circle here and a circle here, so I added them together and got 3.2. And I have 0.4x and negative 0.3x, so I added them together and I got 0.1x. And then I bring everything down on the other side. Now I have an equation with variables on both sides. So you find your smallest x, which is 0.1, and you do the opposite. So you're going to subtract 0.1x from both sides.
I need Sarah Elliott to check out, please.
When you do that, the 0.1x cancels, and you bring down the 3.2, and you subtract 0.3 minus 0.1 and get 0.2x, and then bring down your minus 4. Then you're going to solve for x. We're going to add 4 to both sides and get 7.2 equals 0.2x. Divide both sides by the number in front of the variable, which is 0.2, and you get x equals 36. So your answer for number 9 is 36.
I love 36.
Number 10, you have 2x minus 4 minus 3x equals 10 minus 1x plus 2 minus 2x. So first thing I'm going to do is draw the wall, and you've got a whole bunch of variables and numbers. So I'm going to circle my numbers. Make sure you circle the sign that's in front. If it doesn't have a sign, it's automatically positive. And then I'm going to put boxes around my variables and not forgetting the sign in the front. Now I can combine my like terms. So I have, on the left-hand side, I have a 2x and a negative 3x, which is negative 1x. And I don't have anything that I can do to my minus 4, so I'm just going to write it back down and put minus 4. On this side, I have a negative 1x and a negative 2x, which is negative 3x. And I have a positive 10 and a positive 2, and if I combine those, I get positive 12. So now you got an equation with variables on both sides. You start by finding your smallest variable, which negative 3 is always smaller than negative 1. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to add 3x to both sides. And negative 1x plus 3x is 2x minus 4 equals. This cancels out, and then this is a positive 12. Then I add 4 to both sides, and you get 2x equals 16. Divide by 2, and you get x equals 8. So my answer is the equation has only one solution, x equals 8. That's one answer. And the equation's only solution is x equals 8. So you would pick the third answer and the last answer. Remember when it says select all that apply? That means you got to make sure you pick all the right choices. This is a two-part question, so if you only picked one of those, you only would have got half credit. Let's look at number 11. So it says Wesley's work to solve an equation is shown. Select the options that make the following statements true. So if we look at each step, Wesley solved the equation correctly because the original equation has one solution. So those would be your answers to that. And you can double check his math and look at every part of it. You have to be able to do solving the steps of an equation. Number 12, which equation has the same solution as the equation 5 minus 3 times the quantity y plus 4 equals 14? And the answer to that is 5y plus 7 equals 4y. You would distribute the negative 3, so you get 5 minus 3y minus 12 equals 14. And then you would combine your like terms, so you have negative 3y and negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7 equals 14. And then you would add 7. You get negative 3y equals 21. And your answer would be y equals negative 7 because you would divide by 4. And then you would get the same thing if you did this one. 5y plus 7 equals 4y. I would subtract 4y from both sides. And you get 1y plus 7 equals 0. Subtract 7. And so you get y equals negative 7. So those are the same. The bad thing about a question like that is you have to work every single one of them out to figure out which one's the right one. I will say I would start with the easiest one, which is the one that has whole numbers, right? So if you work the easiest one first, that would definitely help you out because you'd go ahead and have your answer. All right, 13. Solve the following equation for y. So once again, like I said, you've got to work with fractions. And in this case, you can't really change them to decimals because if you change 1/3 to a decimal, you get 0.3 repeating, which is kind of nasty. But so you just got to work out the fractions. When you multiply a fraction times a fraction, how do you do that? How do you multiply fractions?
But I do that butterfly.
Like, let's say I have 2/3 times 1/4. How do you multiply fractions together? No, you don't flip anything. You multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 4 is 12. And then you would reduce and get 1/6. So you got to remember when you multiply fractions, all you got to do go straight across. Don't butterfly. The only time you butterfly is if you if you multiply like that. Or the only time you keep change flip is if you're dividing. Exactly.
You're gonna be famous. I got on Miss Richardson's video.
So 14 says, select all of the equations below that have no solutions. So that's another one of those where you have to work out every single one to figure out which one is no solution. But the second one, if you work it out, 4, you have to distribute first. 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times -3 is -12 equals 8 times x, which is 8x, and 8 times -2 is -16. Then anytime you have the same thing on both sides, you can just mark through it. If you have an 8x on one side of the equal sign and 8x on the other, they would, if you subtracted, they would cancel each other out. So you can just mark through those. So you would get -12 equals -16, which is not a true statement. -12 is not the same as -16. They're different. So this is not a true statement, which means that's no solution. And the same thing happens here. When the 4 x's will cancel out because you have 1 on each side of the equal sign, so you wind up with -3 equals 6. That's not a true statement. -3 does not equal 6, so you have no solution. All right, 15. So 15 is a drag and drop question. It says drag each equation on the left to the description of the number of solutions it has. When you work out number 1, you get infinitely many solutions because both sides are going to equal each other. So if you do 3 times 2x plus 6 equals 6 times x plus 3, and you work that out, you get 6x plus 18 equals 6x plus 18. That's exactly the same, right? 6x plus 18 equals 6x plus 18. When the two sides equal, like the anchor chart says, you have infinite solutions. And then when you work out the second one, you're going to get exactly one solution because you get x equals a number. And on the last one, you get no solutions because you get one of those crazy answers like 2 equals 3. Well, 2 doesn't equal 3, so therefore it's no solution.
2 equals 2.
Thank you. 16. Use the information provided to answer part A and B. So it says Allison was given the equation 4 times the quantity x plus 4 equals 6 times the quantity 4x minus 8. Select the options that correctly complete the sentences. So since we have parentheses, we have to distribute. 4 times 8 is 32x. 4 times 4 is 16. So the first part, simplified, is 32x plus 16. The second part, simplified, when you work out the parentheses, you get 24x minus 48. And so when we solve that equation, you get x equals -8. So that would be your solution. Everybody got it? 17. In the figure below, triangles ABC and DEF are right triangles. So that means they have what kind of angle in the corner?
90 degree.
90 degree.
I knew that.
And it says points A, F, C, and D they all lie on the straight line. They all lie on this same line. So they all have the same what?
Angle.
What's that S word?
Slope.
Slope. Very good.
Latitude.
They all have the same, so both of these triangles have the exact same slope. This one has the same slope as this one. One is just turned one way and the other's turned the other way. So it says, mark each of the following statements to indicate whether they are true or false. So the first one says, triangles ABC and DEF are similar. Yes, if they have the same slope, they're going to be similar. Second one says the absolute value of the slope of the line is equal to DE divided by EF. So we need to look. DE divided by EF. Anytime you're doing slope, you're doing rise over run, right? Okay, so this is rise over run. And if you do the absolute value of the absolute value, just means you take the positive. And so the slope of this would be, that would work out. That's a true statement. The next one says the absolute value of the slope of the line is equal to DF divided by AC. So DF is right here. Is that a rise or a run? Is this a vertical line
that's a
or
rise.
a horizontal line? It's a diagonal, right? The only time we can get slope is rise divided by run. So DF is a diagonal, so that doesn't work. So that's why that's false. And then the absolute value of the slope of the line is equal to DF divided by AC. Hang on, that's one we just did, sorry. The measure of angle E is greater than the measure of angle B. All right. E is greater than B. They're both what? What kind of triangles did we say we had? Right. If they're both right, are they going to be different? No, they're both 90 degrees, right? You got to remember, the angles don't usually change. All right? If we have similar triangles, the angles are going to be the same. All right, let's look at number 18. So it says, in the picture below, ABC and DEF are right triangles, kind of like the last problem. And they all have the same, the slopes all lie on the same line. So it says, mark each of the following statements to indicate whether they are true or false. So first of all, it says the slope of the line is positive. Is that line going up or down?
Nope.
From left to right. Is it going up or down?
Down.
That line is going down, right? If you read that line like you read a book, from left to right, that line is going down. If you're going down, that's a negative thing, right? So this line is negative. Then it says the absolute value of the slope of the line is equal to ED divided by BA. So ED is right here, and BA is right here. These are both rises, aren't they? Because they're both going this way. So we have to have rise over run. So this cannot be true. So that's false. Now the next one says the absolute value of the slope is equal to DE divided by EF. That's true because DE is the rise, EF is the run. Rise over run gives me the slope. And then triangles ABC and DEF are similar, just like in the last problem. If they have the same slope, they are going to be similar. And then the last one says the measure of angle D is greater than the measure of angle E, and we said the angles don't change, right? If they have the same slope, the angles are going to be the same. Everybody got this? False, false, true, true, false.
Oh.
19. Triangle DEF and FGH are shown in the coordinate plane. So the question says, select the options that correctly complete the sentence. The slope of line DF, which is right here, is equal to the slope of line segment FH because the ratio of DE to EF, right here, rise over run, is 1/2, if we count the boxes, is the same as the ratio of right here to right here, FG to GH, which is 3/6. 1/2 and 3/6 are the same thing. If you reduce 3/6, you're going to get 1/2. So these are going to be the same because of that. Number 20, use the information provided to answer part A and B. Music store sells CDs for 75 CDs for $937.50. So if we want to find the price of one CD, we divide. cost divided by the number, and you get $12.50 for each CD. The second store sells them for Y equals 6.25x. So how much money is that? $6.25. So which one's cheaper? $6.25. I'd much rather pay $6.25. So music store B is lower, and the price from is half of the price for a CD at music store A.
One.
Yes, one half. Half, one half. So.
Could be two halves.
21. Elizabeth and Haley each bought a number of bracelets. Elizabeth's purchase can be modeled by the equation T equals 6.25B. So how much did she pay for hers? $6.25, right?
Minus 6.5.
Oh, that's the same. Never mind.
No, it says Elizabeth. This was Elizabeth, $6.25.
B.
And if you work out Haley's, you do 20.25 divided by 3, and you get $6.75. So Elizabeth's, she had a better deal because her bracelets cost 50 cents less. All right, 22. All right, so these are all scientific notation problems. So my class learned how to do these in the calculator. You got to remember that you weren't here. You've got to remember to make sure your calculator is in scientific mode. So you have to hit second DRG and change it from flow mode to scientific mode. And then you've got to remember when you're putting you're putting the questions into the calculator that you use parentheses. Because if you don't use parentheses, you're going to get the wrong answer. So second DRG, use parentheses, and your answers are this. Y'all make sure you got all these written down. The first answer is 5.29 times 10 to the first.
1, 2, 3.
The second answer is 5.29 times 10 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is?
0.
1.
Green.
I mean, yeah, 1.
Anything to the 0 power is 1. So that would just be 5.29. The third one is 5.29 times 10 to the negative 1 power. The fourth question is 5.29 times 10 squared. And the fifth question is 5.29 times 10 to the negative 2 power. If you didn't get all the answers, you can go back and watch the video. All right, 23. The mass of the sun is 1.989 times 10 to the 30th kilograms. That's big. And while the mass of Jupiter is about 1.898 times 10 to the 27th kilograms. Still big, but not quite as big, right? Because we know the sun is the biggest thing in the solar system, yes?
It is.
Other than my head. But I'm good.
Anyway, so we want to see how many Jupiters we can fit inside the sun. And so we would divide the big one by the smaller one. Remember, use your calculator, second DRG, make sure it's in scientific mode, and make sure you use parentheses when you put these in. But when you put this in the calculator, you get the answer A, which is 1.987. That's...
What's the biggest planet?
Oh, we're trying to find difference.
Really?
Sorry, the difference you have to subtract.
The biggest planet is. I actually want that.
Miss Richardson, you know that?
Huh?
What's the biggest planet?
Biggest planet? Uranus.
Uranus.
24. A kilometer can be expressed as 1 times 10 to the third meters. So that means 3 zeros. And a centimeter can be expressed as 1 times 10 to the negative 2 meters. So that means you have a decimal and you're going to have 2 zeros after it. So we're going to complete the options, which a centimeter is 100,000 times smaller than a kilometer. Because if you divided it, or if you look at the number of zeros, if you're on a number line and you're at negative 2, which is where my first, where the centimeter exponent is, and we're trying to go to 3, you would have to jump 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to get to 3, right?
Yes.
So this 5 jumps is the same as the 5 zeros in that answer. Every jump is an exponent. So your answer would be 100,000.
I like that.
10 million.
25. He just wants to make it on video. The circumference of Saturn measures approximately 2.35 times 10 to the 5th miles, and the circumference of Saturn's largest moon, which is Titan, is about 1 times 10 to the 4th. Which statement is correct? So we would have to divide. And so Saturn's circumference is about 2.35 times 10 to the 1st times as many miles as Titan's. So make sure you do it in the calculator, use your parentheses, and you got to figure out how many times something smaller can go into something bigger. All right, so that's it for today. We're going to do 1 through 25, and then we'll do 26 through 50 tomorrow.
Is it time to go?
No.
Alright, good video, guys.
Yeah.